If you've ever felt like your messaging has gotten a little too polished, a little too safe, or honestly just kind of bleh, this episode is going to hit home in the best possible way. Because today we're diving into something that I see so many experienced business owners struggling with at some point, especially after big growth, big life changes, or even just enough years in the industry. And that's losing clarity on what actually makes you different and knowing how to communicate that in a way that creates real demand. Today, I'm joined by messaging expert Megan Yelaney. She's a business strategist who has helped over 1,000 coaches refine what she calls their distinctive edge, that intersection of your story, your perspective, and your method that makes people choose you over anyone else. And what I love about this conversation is that it's not just about strategy. It's about what happens when you build success in a way that stops feeling aligned and how to find your way back. Megan and I talk about identity shifts after becoming a mom, the trap of vanilla messaging, why so many offers stop converting even when theoretically they should work, and how to actually create a business that reflects who you are now, not who you were when you first started. This is one of those conversations that might challenge you about how you've been thinking about your niche, your messaging, or even your whole business model, but in a way that feels like a breath of fresh air. So let's get into it. Most business advice is built on one key assumption that what worked for someone else will work for you too. The Nourished CEO podcast exists to challenge that assumption and point to a better way. I'm Laura Schoenfeld, strategic advisor and business coach with over 15 years of experience online and multiple millions of dollars earned from my own business. I'm also a mom of two and a devoted wife who runs it all in about 20 hours a week. This show is for the established coach, consultant, or service provider who is done following someone else's playbook and is ready to build a joyful, profitable business from their own authority. Every episode is a direct, no filters conversation about the real challenges you're facing in your business, with honest strategy and practical action steps that you can actually use right now. Because working smarter and building something sustainable matters a lot more than just chasing a bigger number. No recycled advice or empty inspiration here, just honest, integrity-driven conversations about building a business that fits your life as much as it fits your goals, so that it gives more than it takes while nourishing everything you're building outside of it. If that sounds like the breath of fresh air you're looking for, you're in the right place. All right, everyone. I am so excited to have with us on the show today, Megan Yelaney. Welcome to
Mhm.
the Nourish CEO podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. I love
Yeah,
this back to back that we're
I
doing here
know.
today.
Honestly, I had done this once with somebody else a couple months ago. I was like, I should always do it this way because I just love that you get like a warm up
Yeah,
and you could just like keep the conversation going. Although we do need to make sure it makes sense for the people who have not
of
heard
course.
the original one. So,
Yes.
all of that to say, I did do your mini intro in the intro to this episode, but I would love to hear from you your story of how you became a business owner, online business. How did you get into this
Yeah.
crazy world that we're in?
Yeah. You and I have so much overlap as I just learned listening to your story. So it's pretty fun to just go, oh, wow, there's so many like nuggets. And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. So I also got started in business a long time ago. I always joke that I'm like a grandma in this industry compared to so many people that I hear. I got started in network marketing in particular in 2000, technically end of 2011 is when I like signed up as a distributor. I was in Beachbody at the time, which is no longer a network marketing company. Saw the writing on the wall with that. Very glad I got out when I did. Just got to say that. But I got started in that. And for about 2 years, I did what a lot of people do. And I think direct sales and business. I kind of like dipped my toe, made a couple sales, stopped and complained that I wasn't making income because I wasn't actually working it. And so then I went to my first event and saw people literally like shredding their mortgages very dramatically. It was so cool though. It's like, wait, they just paid their mortgage? They just paid off their house from this business? Like, what am I doing? I'm just wasting my time right now. And I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I had graduated from college a couple years before, and I moved back to New York. I'm from Long Island, New York, and I moved back. And between like that event and meeting my now husband, there was just something that like lit a fire under me. And I said, that's it. I'm going to like really take this seriously. And a year later, I was able to quit all my side jobs. I was doing background work on television and film and cocktail waitressing and just go all in on that business. And I'm also a performer. So I was also able to just like perform for a living and actually really dedicate myself to that. So it was a really incredible time. It really, really was. And then I think like a lot of people in direct sales, I got to this point where while I loved the company and loved so much about the community building and I learned a ton there, I felt really restricted. Like I could only make money with distributors or the product. And I wanted to talk about marketing and I want to talk about consumer behavior and like all of these other things I had learned. I went to school for marketing and consumer behavior. So I was like, there's so much I really want to bring. And I felt really limited. And so I started my own health coaching company outside of Beachbody for about 6 months, quickly realized that's not actually why I had success in Beachbody and not what I meant to do. Love health in general as like a value and a lifestyle, but not something I'm like passionate about coaching others on. And I pivoted to business coaching. And at first, it was more behind the scenes, one on one people. And I was coaching inside another business program. And so that really was kind of a catalyst for me building this really behind the scenes to a full time income so that when I said, hey, I'm pivoting, I was able to do it and feel like I had some of that ground underneath me because my Beachbody business was my full time income. And so it was very scary, totally letting that go because when you stop working it, even though you had residual, it goes down really quickly. But it was 100% the right move. And I've been business coaching in one way, shape, or form since 2017. But in 2020, I feel like that's the year that everyone always talks about. It changed so much. And I saw a really big increase in my business in 2019 and then also in 2020. Those were like really huge growth years for us. We made over 1 million in less than 2 years. I think it was like 16 months or something, really, really transitioning to high ticket masterminds, high ticket group programs, lots of one on one. And at the same time, and I share this very publicly, so it's not like the first time I'm talking about it, my marriage was like going the opposite way. So it was like business was getting better and better and more money and this and that. And then marriage was crumbling to the point where we actually separated for 6 months. We had a relationship coach guiding us through all of this the whole time. We were working on our marriage and really came to that conclusion that we need to take some time apart to like really think about what we want next. And our businesses did not cause this. We already had issues before our businesses, but it definitely didn't help. We didn't feel like we were succeeding in that area. So we went to what we did feel like we were succeeding at. And we both, he had to take a business. I had my business coaching business. We went all in hardcore in that. And when we got back together, that was my first like, ooh, I had to change what I'm doing. Like, this is not sustainable. So I guess that was my first, before even babies, like, you need to start changing this model. Got rid of one of the masterminds, got rid of a lot of high ticket clients or just didn't renew. I shouldn't say got rid of, that sounds like very dramatic. And that really freed up a lot of time and space. And then I sort of fell into something that I think a lot of people fell into around 2022. I kind of started to get very like, I guess, disclaimery or basic, where everything I had a disclaimer for. I never wanted to offend anyone. I never wanted to like come across any certain way. And to the point where my message was like now so diluted and very vanilla. And it was just like, "Well, you have no opinion on anything."
Mhm.
And that's so not who I am. My whole brand was literally called Pretty Awkward, was built on being yourself, helping other people do that in a very strategic way that felt really good and safe. And I kind of lost that. I lost that for during those few years. And so fast forward, I got pregnant with my twin sons in 2023. A lot happened in between then in our life. My husband and I both lost our dads, found out we were pregnant with twin sons, which was pretty wild and obviously meant to be. But that just threw me for a loop. And so I kind of like threw money at the problem and invested in a marketing agency and all of this help. And it was not the right decision. But all that to say, once they came, it was like everything I had built to prep for them, because I prepped and I said, I'm going to have funnels and courses and I'm not going to coach anymore. And I'm just going to have courses and maybe one program. The second, like literally that they were on my chest, I was like, I don't care about anything, first of all. And then when I started to get back to work a couple months later, everything felt off. I was like, nope, this is wrong. I hate what I'm talking about. Who am I? Like if someone came across my page, they wouldn't be able to say what I do differently. They wouldn't be able to say why they would choose me at all. And that felt very confronting and just like this is the opposite of what I literally preach. So I felt very out of alignment. I felt like I was not embodying what I preach at all. It really did feel like an imposter at that time. And so I took extra time off for maternity. We were lucky that we had built up reserves where we could. So I feel very grateful for that. And my husband started his business again. He had been taking off his business for the last few years. COVID kind of shut the ticket business down, honestly. And so we said, you just do that. You take care of other things. He was helping in the business a little bit. And this was, I was 6 months postpartum with twins. I was navigating so much. And I never felt more lost in my business than I did at that time. And I know you probably can relate to this, and a lot of people can who've had kids. Like, you're so grateful and so happy that this is what you wanted. We didn't have an easy journey there. And I was so mad because I was like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, this is unfair. And so it was this really weird, like, felt guilt for feeling that, but so happy at the same time. So fast forward again, I just let myself kind of feel lost for a while and really went back to like the drawing board. What do I know I love talking about? If I had to be on a podcast, if I had to be on a stage, if someone said, "What could you do forever in business?" It was really helping find people find what now I've coined their distinctive edge. It's helping them find that thing about them that's unique, that's different, that stands out even slightly, a process they use, something about their lived experience that really is going to be the catalyst for people working with them. That's what I used to do, and I just kind of lost sight of it. And so I spent all of 2025 building a program out fully dedicated to that. And from scratch, that program made over 220,000 last year, and that is really what I'm growing now. And we've added a lot of other things, on the back end, but pretty much that's been my main focused message for the last year. And I truly can say I've never felt more aligned with my business than I have right now. Even though we're in that rebuild season, like this feels better than any big launch I've ever had. So again, I know we have so much overlap in all of that, but that's kind of where we are now, just like scaling that program and really loving the work we're doing now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's funny because Megan and I literally did a show on her podcast where I shared my story. I was like, oh, so this is what it feels like to feel like that sounds very familiar.
I
Like
know.
even the idea of having the kids and feeling like I don't like what am I doing? Right. It's weird because I was mentioning this to Megan before we hit record on either show that there aren't a lot of people that have built something very successful and then had a kid and then actually stuck with their business. And I know you took some time off,
Mm,
but like there's so many people who are just being like, I think I'm just going to be a stay-at-home mom and they're just failing even if they theoretically have very very like multi 7 8 figure businesses. It's like, nah, I'm going to like go do the mom thing and it's not like a judgment to say that you shouldn't do that if that's what you want to do, but I think what we don't hear as much about is how many people that stick around have this like identity crisis of like, who am I? What do I actually care about? And I think from a health perspective, I don't even think you have to be dealing with any sort of like mental health issues postpartum to have this feeling of feeling very like lost where you're going next. What was your experience like? So you said you had planned to run courses. Is that what you were saying?
hmm
What what happened? Like what made you feel like that wasn't the right fit for you?
Yeah, I kind of set up, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have twins. Oh my gosh, like maybe with one I can handle it, but I just immediately thought that's gonna be too overwhelming, which is not wrong. It definitely is. I don't know what it's like to have one, so I can imagine though. There is just more to handle physically and very similar. I didn't want to send my kids to daycare. I really wanted to be so. I'm like, this is why I built a business. I wanted to be so present as much as I could. We do have help. We have a babysitter like 12 to 16 hours a week now, but I still really wanted to be as present as possible. So to me, that meant, oh, no live coaching. Everything's automatic. Everything's self-paced. I just went such the other extreme, which is so funny when you think about it. I would never actually tell my client to do that. So I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I actually let myself do that? So I had one main group program that I was like, I'll keep that. I shut my mastermind down. I said, maybe I'll have one, possibly two private clients. But pretty much, I wanted to send everyone just to these courses that I had built out. Great courses, nothing wrong with them. But it was also at the time where I think, again, courses are not dead, of course, but people are really seeking hands-on support, I think now more than ever. And so the timing was also not the best when like that's actually what people were wanting more of. And what I found out pretty quickly, unless you're running ads, even if you're running ads, you need to actually spend time and energy running traffic to those courses and to your funnels. So it wasn't like that much less effort when I
Mhm.
when I really kind of came down to it. And I just had realized the courses that I built were based on the person I was coaching before. And very similar to you, I came back and realized I don't love talking about this stuff anymore. This is like not exciting me. So when I did a launch to launch my course. It was the worst launch I ever had. And usually I power through a launch. Like I see the positive in it, even if it's not going the way I want. I'm like, we're doing this. I was checked out. I was so checked out. And I don't think it's because I was 4 months postpartum. I really don't. It was like the topic, I was so not into it. I hated it. I was complaining every day. And even my husband was like, you're really hating this. Like, what's going on? You've never talked like this before. And the second that ended, I was like, this is it. I can't do this anymore. I don't want anyone to purchase this course. And not because it doesn't work and not great. It's just not what I want to be known for. It's not what I want my stamp on anymore, you know? And so that's when I quickly realized maybe it's not even the course model, but the topic wasn't for me. And I did miss getting into it with clients. I missed the discussion, the deeper talks. I was like, I do want to be on calls, not all day, not like I used to be, but I do want that touch point. And so it's just very interesting how we assume we're going to feel one way. And then when it actually came down to it, I wanted the time away from my sons to be worth it and to make me great money. Ideally,
Mhm.
ideally both, but at least one of them,
Yeah.
something I love. So that's kind of like what happened with that.
Well, and I don't know if you had this experience, but I feel like I was very sucked into a lot of the messaging around what successful business looks like as a mom, where
Yes.
it's like you need recurring revenue, evergreen, all the time, money coming in to like,
Yep.
be a mom. And I'm not saying that's not a way to do it, but for me, I kind of had the same, not the same, but similar kind of experience where I felt very disconnected from people because it was that revolving door of like in and out, in and out. And I didn't
Yeah.
really get a chance to actually feel like I was participating in the full transformation for somebody. And for me,
Yeah.
I didn't realize until it was like, oh, this isn't just a fluke. This is like literally how I feel now. I I need the energetic exchange of like, I'm pouring into somebody and I'm seeing the fruit in their life. And it's not just like pour in, pour in,
Yes.
pour in, and then they're disappearing. And I'm like, what's happening? So I feel like with the course model, that's another one of those ones that you see a lot in the mom entrepreneur space where it's like, just sell passive courses and just like, put all your money on evergreen and like, just like be making sales while you're at the park. And it's okay, cool. But if I don't wanna sell that way and I don't like how I feel when I'm not connecting with people, it doesn't matter if it's technically profitable. It's like, how well can you really scale a business that you actually don't even like, you know?
Yes, exactly. And that's where I was. I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to scale this. Like, and I ask my clients this a lot if they're in that like transition period or they're like in a funk and they really need to pivot or do something different. I'm like, if you were making 20, $30,000 a month with this offer, would you be excited? And when they're like, no, I'm like, all right, then it's not just the money thing. We need to talk because
Mhm.
that should be a yes, right? That should
Yeah.
be an easy yes, right? That right there. Yeah.
So with your, I guess I don't know if I want to call it a pivot, but it's kind of like a redefining of what you were putting your stamp on, as you said.
Yeah.
How did you figure that out? Is it you went, back into the archives of what did I like talking about? Did you have to kind of start from scratch and say, I need to figure out now
Mm.
what I do actually care about? What was the process like for you?
Yeah. I really started back with it's the framework I really teach today, honestly. But the first thing I did was I wrote down my story, like literally pen to paper, which I have horrible handwriting. So it took me a while and it was not very legible. And then I transcribed it. But I wrote down, I was just like, what is my story? And then as I went through, I told obviously a very Cliff Notes version here, but I went back to my transition from network marketing specifically to, and even within network marketing, what were things that I did that like helped me succeed? What did I love about it? And then how did I start to see success in my health business and then my business coaching business? Because that felt like so long ago, but it really wasn't. And I remember just at that time, I had these like really just purposeful days. Like I felt so excited about what I was doing. Yes, some of it because it's that beginning jitters, but then even when it was scaling, I was just like, I love this. I wasn't building to hit a certain income goal. I was truly like putting out offers because I was genuinely excited about what I was doing. So I kind of went back and I was like, what was my story through entrepreneurship? What were those pivot moments that really lit me up, that I knew I was doing what I was meant to be doing? And I wrote all that down and I kind of like started to look at like through lines and commonalities between those like pivot moments, from network marketing to health to business, and then even within the business model rechange. And the common thread I saw throughout all of it is the clients that, this is kind of like a 1-2 punch. I'll explain this in more detail, but the clients that I loved working with the most, the programs I loved the most, were really helping them find their edge. Like, what's that thing? I was really great at taking that their kind of brain of mush and going, this is actually what should be an offer. This is actually your brand. Because it's so easy. It's hard for people, they can do it for someone else, but it's hard for them to see it in themselves. And that's like a gift I knew I had, and I just kind of lost it. And so at the same time, that's another thing I did, which I highly recommend everyone doing this. It's such a simple exercise, but it always like helps my clients kind of get back to what they're meant to do. Write down like your top 3 to 5 clients. People you're like, if I could clone these people all day long, would love to have them. It's fill my roster with them. And then write down why they joined your program, specifically like what was the catalyst, what was the problem they really needed solved that was urgent enough for them to actually pay. And then why you? And if you don't know, go ask them. They're going to be more than happy to answer, but and put that on your application if you haven't. Like, why you? Why what about your approach? What about your story? Like what about you made them choose you over someone else? And when I like really sat down and looked at those clients, the reason they chose me was hands down every time, you're so authentic, you're yourself. I feel like I want to learn how to be myself online and actually make money from it, which is so big. It's like, how do you strategically coach that, right? And it's like kind of a vague thing. And then the next step besides why they choose you is, what was that like transformation that they had, that breakthrough that you're like, oh, that was the secret sauce. That's what I'm really great at. And so again, when I went through the skill set, the secret sauce, the through line was helping them find what I now call your distinctive edge. It was like that thing about them that ended up becoming their brand, becoming their signature offer, that kind of built everything from there. It's like once that clicked, everything took off. So that was the first step, was like, what's my story? What were the through lines? What was that like connective tissue between all these clients that like, that's my thing. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm chuckling because I'm like, on our interview, I talked about how I didn't want to talk about niching anymore, but I am going to ask you,
I
how do
love it.
you how do you distinguish between somebody's niche and their
Mhm.
distinctive edge?
Great question. So I think of their edge as more of like a kind of a trifecta. I think of their edge as their story, their framework, so how they actually take people through their transformation, what's like something unique about that, and then their ideal client. So it's kind of a combination of the three, so that there's never going to be a copy of that. Like, you might have a similar story to someone, but your framework is going to be slightly different, and then who you're actually helping, the niche, that's going to be in the ideal client and what they really need to hear. So that's where like you could have, let's say, because I have a lot of health coaching clients, who, if you look at it kind of brass tacks, it kind of looks like they help the same person, almost same niche, but they lead with a slight unique approach to their framework, and their story resonates differently.
Mm.
One example is, I have a client who has been kind of overweight her whole life, had a really huge transformation, and has been coaching people for years now after she got certifications and all that jazz. And when we were looking at her story, when I had to write it down, I was like, you're not sharing that. Like, you're not, she was sharing her weight loss transformation, of course, but she wasn't sharing that like she'd been overweight her whole life. Like, this was just, she kind of almost accepted this is just how she is. Like, she went to Weight Watchers literally when she was 10 years old. Her mom took her to Weight Watchers. And so we were like talking through that. I'm like, you should start sharing that specifically, and why your process includes a really big mindset component, because you had to work through so much to overcome like the identity that this is just how I am. This is just my weight, right? And when she started to really lean into that, she really started to attract not just women who wanted to lose weight, in a certain age range, but women who've identified as being overweight their whole life and kind of felt lost. And her business has blown up since then. And it was a slight tweak in messaging, but it's kind of, again, a combo of her story and this thing that she wasn't like pinpointing and talking about enough that made her different, and her framework, like a piece of her process that addressed that nuance to her story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the story piece is the primary place where that comes from, or is it one option that you look at?
In terms of like the niching and getting specific
Yeah,
or
so I
your
mean,
edge.
you mentioned that you kinda, like, wrote your own story out, and then this
Yeah.
other person was thinking about their story. Do you feel like for most people, if not all people, looking at their own personal story should be
Mm.
part of that process?
Yes, definitely. I always have my clients do it first. And what I notice is after that, I have them do their framework, even before their ideal client, because sometimes I know you definitely resonate with this. We built a program for a client that we don't necessarily want to coach. And
Mhm.
so I say, what's the process you actually like going through? What steps do you want to actually go through and take a client through? And then we'll go find the person who fits that. We'll go find match the messaging. So I like to start with, the person running the business first. And so sometimes what I'll see is after someone goes through their story, they go, okay, now let me map out my process. And usually a little bit of that process is actually shown in the story, but it'll kind of be a tug of war or like a push and pull after they do their process. They go back to their story and they tweak it or they take something out and then they go back to their framework. So it's like it's a like I said, it's like a back and forth until it feels like okay, this is the common thread, and you can kind of see it through both the framework and the story. So yes, I always have people start with story, and 90% of the time that's where they find their edge. But there is a good chunk of people who get so much more clarity from their framework, or that is actually more powerful for them to get clear on what's unique about them versus their story.
Mhm. Do you feel like it has to do with I don't know, part of me wonders if it has to do with the saturation of your niche where like, I'm thinking of some people I've talked to recently where what they do is so specific and unique that they can sell it really well because really they're one of the only people doing it,
Yeah.
versus if you're in a niche where there's a lot of people doing something similar, the story piece really has to be the thing that sets you apart because otherwise, like, we're all kinda doing the same method here. Why would you pick mine over anyone else's?
Yes, I think so for sure. In fact, I have a couple people right now who come to mind, 3 in particular, who are all helping women in perimenopause, and all 3 of them, ironically, are in the medical field. One is a physician, one is an ICU nurse, the other is also in nursing, but in a different way, and one really hyper focuses on labs. The physician actually focuses more on the mindset piece, and then the ICU nurse focuses a little bit on labs, but more on the lifestyle alteration. So even them having that like credibility and their lived experience, because that's a huge part of your story that I think a lot of people when they start their business, they think they have to like leave out their pre-business life. And it's like complete opposite. That's actually gonna like make your story so much more unique. And oh, you went to school for this, or you actually like have a career in here. This is why it makes you a better coach, like teachers tend to be really great coaches, and that makes sense. So talk about that. That's like someone will choose you over someone else who doesn't have that background for that reason. And even those 3, there's something specific in their framework and in their story that like even differentiates seemingly very similar people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have worked with so many people where they actually use a protocol they got taught in another program,
Mm,
which is, I mean, why reinvent the wheel, right? If it works, you don't have to like completely come up with like this brand new, never been done before. I mean, to be fair, most stuff is not
yeah. What's
completely
new?
unique, right, right. Honestly, if you're doing everything brand new, I'm like, you're either spending a lot of time that you don't need to be spending, or maybe you're not doing it properly.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
at some point, using established especially in the health space, right? Because like,
Yeah.
there's so much stuff that it's like, no, this is just how it works. This is how the
Yeah.
human body works. There's not a lot of diversity of ways that this is gonna help somebody. So I think a lot of the people we've
Totally.
worked with sometimes get a little down on themselves because they don't really think there's anything unique about them. And it
Mhm.
might be because they're so heavily focused on what they do as being the thing that needs to be unique that they don't
Yeah.
necessarily see all the other places in them, in, how they show up. I mean, even the personality differences between people, I think sometimes
Yes.
are so underutilized that they're just not even thinking about how you communicate, or do you like to do video versus are you a really good writer? Like all those things that can actually be the thing that stands out for you. It
Yep.
doesn't have to be that you've literally like created the only, solution to perimenopause on the planet, which
Yeah.
clearly you're not the only
It
person
clearly
doing
it's
that.
been proven. Yeah, it's another point to that too is even if you think about your approach, so which I consider different than your framework, you could have a very similar, like you said, step by step. I follow the same protocol. But and I was literally just hosted a mastermind retreat this week. So such a great example. These women, there's like four women who are technically in the health field, but wildly different. Even we did a photo shoot. And I'm like, wow, there is no one copy paste here. Like they are all, it was a really cool representation of my brand on this. I was like, this is so exciting. And one of them in particular, like she takes a very spiritual approach to her coaching, has all the degrees, has all the credentials, does like custom workouts and all this stuff that a lot of people do. And she sometimes whips out a tarot card in her session, or she will do like a prayer or meditation. Now, she makes that known to her clients, and so that it's like they're cool about that and they're very open to that approach. But that's going to be so wildly different from another client who's like super strategic and just doesn't even, nope, we're not talking about mindset if you didn't do it this way. And there's nothing wrong with either approach. Not one's not better than the other. But that's another thing is like, don't dial that down. Like, that was a huge thing we talked about this week was like, you need to dial that up because that is all of her clients are saying one of the reasons they're picking her is because after they get to know her through DMs and on her master classes is where she really shines. They notice, oh, you're also spiritual, and they're like interested. They're very
Mhm.
interested in it. They're considering it or considering like trying to learn more about it. That's a huge reason they picked her. I'm like, we need to up the ante on this publicly. You need to talk about
Mhm.
this more. This is literally why people want to work with you. So
Yeah.
even if you think about it like that way, like your approach to your coaching and I think of it as strategic. I have like four categories in a quiz that I used to do: strategic, mindset, aspirational. So more like influencer, come with me as I do kind of vibe, or spiritual. Those are like four that I kind of play around with. But that's a huge differentiator right there.
Yeah. Well, and I could also imagine that being helpful to make sure you're not getting people signing up to work with you who then don't have a good experience.
Yes.
Because some of those things, obviously, there's certain people that would actually be very uncomfortable with it.
Yep.
And that wouldn't be a good experience for anybody. If you have somebody come in, you're like, well, I'm going to whip a tarot card out. And
Yeah.
someone's like, what did I get
Whoa.
into here?
What are
Like
you
that.
doing?
Yeah. That wouldn't be as fun for the coach to work with somebody who doesn't. And it's not even to be like, oh, you're not cool enough to do this kind of stuff. It's more if they can't use their full giftings,
Yes.
then they're always gonna feel like they can't do what they wanna do with somebody, right? And
Exactly.
so it's, like, just as important to repel the people who actually would not appreciate those parts of you, and not to and
100%.
again, it's not to say that anyone be like, "You're a horrible person." It would just be, "Oh, I'm not comfortable with this," or, "I don't wanna do it that way," and then you kinda have to, like, tamp things down, and that's
Yeah.
I've done that enough where I've had to kind of, like, keep things to myself that I'm like, "I don't even this is not fun for me to feel like I can't fully express myself with this
Exactly.
person," and I don't think they get as good results because then you're literally, like, tiptoeing around and making sure you don't do something that's gonna bother them, so
100%. Yeah, that's a huge reason to share your approach. Exactly. It's like so that the people signing up are like, I'm all about your process and your methods and let's go. Like I'm
mhm.
fully open to it because yeah, it could be a very uncomfortable situation on both ends if not for sure.
Yeah, I literally have been working with a client recently who had been wanting to talk more about her Catholic faith as part of her
Mm,
or just as part of her brand, and we actually had her niche down into fertility, like infertility support for Catholic women. And I was like, dude, this is like such a good niche because there are no other alternatives for most Catholic women. Like if you're struggling with fertility, a lot of Catholic women are like completely not even remotely interested in doing something like IVF.
hmm
So I'm like, they don't have another option. So they're going to want to work with you because they're not weighing their options between, well, maybe I should do IVF, maybe I shouldn't. And so she was really nervous about it, but she's already gotten so much momentum, even just in the last couple of months from doing it. And
Amazing.
we looked at like the SEO and I'm like, you probably are going to start ranking on Google very quickly because most of this stuff is not anybody coaching. It's like just some random church websites or something, right? So I do think sometimes people are afraid to narrow in on certain things because they don't want to turn people away. Or for her, she
Hmm.
was like, I don't know if I'm Catholic enough. I'm like, first of all, I don't know what that means to
Yeah.
not
What
be
does that
Catholic
mean?
enough. Like, you're not trying to like be a priest here. You're literally just calling out Catholic women.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, it's just really funny because now that she's in it, she's so excited. She's so lit up with that
Yeah.
stuff. And so I
And
just feel
then
like,
you just have so much more content ideas too, because
mhm,
you don't have to, you get to share that lifestyle content. And again, not like feel like you're censoring yourself. Like
yeah.
you, hey, I can share about my day, I can share about this Bible verse or this study I went to or church or whatever it is. It like kind of takes away that fourth wall, as we say in the theater world. Like you just can fully talk and be yourself, which is so huge when it comes to conversion. People want to trust you and like you and not feel like they're getting like a kind of fake version of you.
Right, right. So, selfishly, I would love to know for somebody like me
Yeah.
who
Mhm.
is in the moment trying to figure out, okay, is there something that I can put my stamp on? Because I've been doing this stuff for so long that there's so much stuff I can help somebody with. There's so many stories that I have, so many life experiences, business experiences, people that I've worked with, things that I've helped people with. I feel like that's one of my challenges right now is there's so much volume of possible,
Mm,
things to focus on that I'm still trying to figure out what I want to lean into. And for me, there's this extra meta. Well, I know from a like marketing perspective what is quote unquote more effective, but then I feel very strongly that some of the more effective marketing stuff is like repulsive to me. And I feel like I might be ahead of things a little bit. I feel like there's going to be a swing. And I'm starting to see it already. I'll see these people kind of making fun of content that's like, oh, if you want to make $1 million in 3 hours, like comment the
yeah,
word blah, blah, blah. And they're kind of just like making fun of it. So I think when things start to get made fun of, you're like, oh, that nobody's taking that seriously anymore.
yeah,
But I'm kind of in this amorphous, like, I think this is where I want to go. And I like this. And I think it's really important. But then there's that little, whatever on the shoulder being like, but do people want to buy that? Because you can't just sell something that you like without other people liking it. So
mm,
what liking it, wanting to pay money for it.
totally.
So for someone like me, and I'm sure we have a lot of listeners who are like, there's so many different things that
Mhm.
I could lead with as
Yeah,
far as the public, this is what I'm known for. This is my signature program. This is like, because I have this desire to have a business where people say, "Oh, you want to do such and such? Like, you need to work with Laura." Like, I always see people like that. Like, I think about like, I don't know, random example. Callan Faulkner is like the it girl with AI right now, and
mm,
everyone in my network is talking about you got to do Callan Faulkner's program. I'm like, wow, she has really done a great job of like
yeah,
becoming like the go-to person for this topic. And not to say that I'll ever get to that level because I feel like that's even a pretty big outlier, but I have this desire to be like, I want to be, I want people to know what they would pay me for. And I think
yeah,
one of the things that I've struggled with as I've been in this, like, where am I going next perspective is boiling it down into something that's marketable versus something that I know is important, but do other people know is important? So, like I said, very
yeah,
selfishly, what
yeah.
would your suggestion be?
No, I love this. And it is like obviously a process. So this is just like a rapid fire one. But what you're kind of saying, what pinpoints to me is I think Russell Brunson coined this term, but maybe he heard it from someone else because, like we said, everything is recycled, is domino belief. Is like, what is I think it's the vehicle plus a superlative equals your transformation. I just spent so much time doing this with my clients at the retreat. So it's like very in my head right now. But it's the vehicle is the thing that you essentially become known for in a marketable way. And sometimes I think people try to over uniqueify this. They want it to sound so like out there that to your, point, no one understands what it is and doesn't buy. So it's like that's the fine line. It's like it's got to be something that people go, "Oh my gosh, I don't know. I haven't heard of that, but I want that transformation. I need to learn what this is." Right?
Mhm.
So it's got to have like all those pieces. So an example, mine is having in marketing your distinctive edge is the fastest way and easiest way to stand out online right now. And so so many people are now using that term with me. They're going, hey, I need to find my distinctive edge. I think I have it, but I don't think I'm marketing it right. It took a year of literally nonstop saying that for people to start saying that to me. So it does take time. But I would ask is like, what's the transformation you help people with? What is if you had to pick like the crux of what you do to help people get there, what is that? What's that like vehicle?
Oh, you're asking me right now?
Kind
I
of like, I
would
was like, we're gonna do a little mini coaching session.
Yeah, I would say, at least right now, because again, I'm in a very deep introspective ideation phase, I guess. Like, I'm very much trying to unravel what is it that I do? And a lot
Mhm.
of it's what do I do subconsciously with the clients I work with that I can create a process for, which is
Yeah.
basically, I mean, that's always what I've taught people is like taking what you do naturally and actually creating a process so that even if you do one-on-one, it's still like, you
Yeah.
can sell it, you can make it easier for you to scale, like whatever. So right now, and again, it's so fresh. So I'm like, okay, this
I
could
know I put you on the spot.
no, it's okay. It's okay. No, I love it. Right now, I would say the core belief or the domino belief. I don't know if I'm going to use the exact
Yes.
framework, but the domino belief would be that the only way to build a business that is profitable for the long run is to build it based on who you are and your
Mhm.
strengths rather than trying to build it based on somebody else's
Mhm.
personality or strengths. So knowing who you are and what you're great at and finding what those strengths are and operationalizing them in your and now we're getting way outside of a domino belief, but it's like operationalizing them for how you deliver your services, how you sell, and how you market is the best and most sustainable way to have a business that continues to grow, creates a lot of money for you, and doesn't lead you into burnout.
Yes. Okay. Love this. And so I think this is such a good example because it's like you said, a lot of things and I don't want to say vague, but like it's big, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's not as easy to as like carb cycling is the fastest way to, whatever, right? So
Or
or
like
something.
Substack is the best way to,
Exactly. Or
get
you're
paid
selling a
online.
YouTube program.
Mhm.
YouTube is, that so easy, so clear. With this, what I usually recommend, because I have a ton of clients that they have the same situation, right? I usually recommend honestly making something up, like making up a term that's kind of like, I mean, that's what I did. My vehicle would have been a million miles long, right? And I was like, okay, I help you be yourself online, combine your personality and your story and your framework and your process, and then poof, like you stand out, right? I'm like, well, I can't say that. That's like
Yeah.
very confusing. And so I was like, what are they actually getting? They're getting their edge. They're getting and then like, rifting and all that jazz and figured finally got to this thing. So for you and anyone else listening, like I would brain dump everything. And this is where AI can be so helpful with
Mhm.
ideating too, is brain dump all those like keywords. Authority, I know is a huge word that you use, right? Psychology, like so many of those things that I've heard you say. Brain dump all those words and the goal that it's going to get them to and see if you can come up with almost like a made up term that's like this is it. Like this could be it or it could at least go make people go, "Ooh, what is that?" Because I want that transformation that she just said. I want to have a profitable business that I love showing up for every day, which is kind of what you're saying in so many words,
Mhm.
right? Like just to make it really brass tacks. So, what's like a term that we can come up with? And now I'm committed to helping you with this. So, after we have to play around and chat and Voxer about, I'm like, we're coming up with your term. But like, what is that? Something that we can create to encapsulate that because it is a little bit long. And so then you can start to play with it. And it's like, I think people get so nervous to do this because they're like, well, once I say it, that's it. And it's like,
Toothpaste is out of the tube on that.
yeah, it's like, hey, it's okay. I could have, there were other things I was testing. I actually used to say business remodel instead of distinctive edge. Didn't land.
Mhm.
Was just like not doing it. And I'm like, something's off with this. And I tried it for about 4 months. And I was like, okay, this isn't it. Right.
Mhm.
Yes. Do we end up doing a lot of remodeling in it? Sure. But it's just not the thing. So be open to like experimenting. A really quick, great example. I'm in literally in the middle of like a low ticket launch right now. And the first couple of days I was selling it, I was like, what is happening? Like, why aren't more people buying this? It's 27 bucks. Like, what is going on? And I really looked at the messaging and I changed from 10K one liner is the name of the event, saying like, you're going to find that one liner that you can put on websites and all the stuff, very similar to what we're talking about now. And I changed it to, you're going to find your authority stamp. and or your authority core. It's literally what I say in the program, but I decided to make it fancier. The second I changed that and explained that, sales started rolling in. Oh, I
Oh,
get it.
amazing.
Okay, yeah, I do need that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was mid-launch. I was like freaking out. I'm like, what the hell? If this isn't going to sell, how's the other thing going to, as we do. And that one little flip. So like with all of this, like be open to just experimenting with it too and seeing what sticks.
Mhm. Well, I would love to keep talking about all of this with you, and we probably will off the record, but
Yeah.
I know we have to wrap things up. Where can people learn more from you? I think you had mentioned that you have a private podcast series all
Yeah.
about standing out, so let us know where
Yes.
we can get more.
Yes, yes, yes. If you're already listening to a podcast, you can head on over to Business Not As Usual. That's my podcast, and Laura's going to be on it. So we'll have that episode out very soon as well. But I am hosting a private podcast called Main Character Energy. And it's really around everything we just talked about, helping you build the edge that your clients cannot stop thinking about and that AI can't generate. And I think now more than ever, it's a really big thing we're going to talk about in this series. So if you go to the link in the show notes, which I'll give to you, you can go listen and start binge listening to those episodes. They're really tactical, tangible, short, so you can take action on them now. But touching a lot of what we talked about today, story and your framework and your how to weave it all together with your client and a little bit of this domino belief too.
Yeah, this is stuff that for sure is non-negotiable for the AI world we're in, because it's the only
Yes,
thing you can't use AI for. So
exactly.
definitely go
Yeah.
listen. I will go listen. I can't wait to
Yay.
check it out.
I
Thank you,
love it.
Megan, so much for sharing your story and sharing all that about the distinctive edge. It's something that I think is going to make a big difference for a lot of people. So I appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We'll see you here next week on the Nurse CEO podcast. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. And if this episode got you thinking about how you're actually wired to run your business, your next step is to take the CEO type quiz. Because here's the thing, most of the business advice out there was built for someone specific. And if that someone isn't you, it doesn't matter how hard you work or how many strategies you implement. It's just never going to feel right, and it's never going to work as well as it should. Knowing your CEO type changes all of that. After you take the quiz, your results page will walk you through your natural strengths, your biggest blind spots, and a concrete game plan for your offers, messaging, sales, and even your calendar, all built around how you actually think and lead. Not generic advice, your specific direction. It takes about 5 minutes and it's completely free. The link is in the show notes, or you can go to lauraschoenfeld.com/quiz. And if you already know your type and this episode resonated with you, share the quiz with someone else who needs it. The right framework at the right time can completely change how someone sees their business. And honestly, that's exactly why I made this. All right, I'll see you next time on the Nourish CEO podcast.